You know that moment when your whole world crumbles and you realize you've been living a lie? Well, mine happened 3 days after I buried my husband of 22 years while I was still wearing the same black dress from his funeral. Before we dive into this incredible story, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments. Now, let's begin. I'm Helena Morrison, 65 years old, and I thought I knew my life pretty well. Former nurse, devoted wife, and apparently the most gullible woman in California. Because there I was, standing in what I thought was my living room, holding a legal document that might as well have been my death sentence. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Morrison," the lawyer said, not looking sorry at all. "But the house was purchased before your marriage and remained in your late husband's name only. California law is complex in these situations, and Miss Stevens is contesting your community property claims. Until this is resolved in court, she has the right to ask you to vacate." Camilla, my stepdaughter, the 40-year-old woman who'd barely spoken to me since her father and I married, except to ask for money or criticize my cooking. She stood behind the lawyer with her arms crossed, wearing designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Camilla, surely we can work something out," I said, hating how my voice sounded small and pleading. "This has been my home for over 2 decades. She smiled then, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. "Oh, Helena. Sweet, naive Helena. Did you really think I was going to let you stay here forever?" The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Miss Stevens, perhaps you could give Mrs. Morrison some time to find alternative arrangements." 30 days, Camilla interrupted, her voice sharp as broken glass. "That's more than generous for someone who was never really family anyway." I felt my knees go weak. 22 years of marriage, of caring for this woman's father, of trying to be a mother to a child who hated me from day one. And this was my reward. "Camilla, your father loved me. We built a life together. He felt sorry for you," she snapped. "You were a lonely widow when you met him, remember? He was too kind to break your heart, but deep down, he knew what I always knew." "And what's that?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. "That you were never good enough for him. Never good enough for this family." She picked up her designer purse and headed for the door. 30 days, Helena. Don't make me call the sheriff." After they left, I sat on the couch where my husband and I had watched countless movies, shared Sunday morning coffee, and planned what we thought would be our golden years together. The silence was deafening. I walked through the house, touching familiar objects that apparently weren't mine anymore. The wedding china we'd received as gifts, the photos of trips we'd taken, even the garden I'd carefully tended for 2 decades. None of it belonged to me. That night, I called my sister in Phoenix. "Marie, I need to tell you something." "Helena, you sound terrible. What's wrong?" When I finished explaining, there was a long pause. Then Marie said quietly, "Honey, I wish I could help, but Bob's medical bills have wiped us out. We can barely afford our own place." After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and did the math. My nursing license had expired years ago. My Social Security wouldn't cover rent anywhere decent. I had maybe $3,000 in my personal savings account. At 65 years old, I was about to become homeless. But what I discovered next changed everything. Have you ever been so desperate that you'd consider anything? I mean anything? Because that's where I found myself 2 weeks later, sitting in a coffee shop downtown, circling job listings with a red pen and wondering if Walmart greeter was too ambitious for someone my age. "Senior companion needed," I read aloud. "Must enjoy cats." Well, I was allergic to cats, so that was out. Part-time babysitter. Right, because what parent wants a 65-year-old watching their kids? I was about to give up when something caught my eye. It was a small ad, almost hidden at the bottom of the page. "Experienced caregiver wanted. Female, age 60+, private duty for wheelchair-bound professional, excellent salary, room and board included, serious inquiries only." I read it 3 times. Age 60+? Most ads wanted young, energetic caregivers. This was unusual. But unusual was all I had left. The phone number led to an answering service. "Cross Residence," a professional voice answered. "How may I help you?" "I'm calling about the caregiver position." "One moment, please." After what felt like an eternity, a different voice came on the line. Younger, female, efficient. "This is Sarah, Mr. Cross's assistant. Do you have medical experience?" I was a registered nurse for 30 years before I retired. Age? I hesitated. 65. Perfect. Can you come for an interview tomorrow at 2 o'clock? Yes. Where? She gave me an address in Malibu. Malibu. Even the zip code screamed money. Bring your nursing credentials and 3 references. Mr. Cross is very particular about his staff. After I hung up, I stared at the phone. Something felt off about the whole thing. Who specifically wanted an older caregiver? And why was someone wealthy enough to live in Malibu hiring through a newspaper classified ad? But desperate times called for desperate measures, and I was nothing if not desperate. I spent the rest of the day preparing. I dug out my old nursing certificates, contacted former colleagues for references, and tried to figure out what to wear to interview for a job I'd never thought I'd need. The next afternoon, I drove my 15-year-old Honda up a winding coastal road that made me dizzy. The houses got bigger and farther apart until I reached an iron gate with an intercom system. "Helena Morrison for Mr. Cross," I said into the speaker. The gates opened silently. The driveway was longer than most city blocks, lined with palm trees that probably cost more than my car. When the house came into view, I actually gasped. It wasn't just a house, it was a mansion. Modern glass and steel that looked like it belonged in a magazine. I parked next to a fountain that could have supplied water to a small village and walked to the front door on legs that felt like jello. The woman who answered was about 30, impeccably dressed, with the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. "Mrs. Morrison? I'm Sarah. Please come in." The entrance hall had a ceiling 2 stories high and artwork that looked expensive enough to buy a small country. Everything was pristine, sterile almost, like a museum instead of a home. "Mr. Cross is waiting in his office," Sarah said, her heels clicking on marble floors. "A few things before you meet him. He values privacy above all else. He's been through several caregivers recently, and frankly, he's lost patience with certain types." "What types?" She paused at a set of double doors. "Young women who see dollar signs instead of a human being. That's why he specifically requested someone more mature." Little did I know this was just the beginning. The office was like everything else in the house, intimidating and expensive. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that could have doubled as a landing strip, and windows overlooking the Pacific Ocean. But it was the man behind the desk who made me forget to breathe for a moment. Alexander Cross was nothing like I'd expected. Yes, he was in a wheelchair, but that's where my assumptions ended. He was probably 45, with dark hair just starting to show silver at the temples and the kind of intense brown eyes that seemed to see right through you. He wore a casual button-down shirt that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, but somehow he made it look effortless. "Mrs. Morrison," he said, his voice deep and surprisingly warm. "Please, sit down." I sat in the chair across from his desk, trying not to fidget. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Cross. Tell me why you want this job. Direct. No small talk." I could appreciate that. "Honestly, because I need it. My husband passed away recently, and I discovered I'm not as financially secure as I thought. No point in lying to someone who probably had more lawyers than I had shoes." Something shifted in his expression. "I'm sorry for your loss. That must have been difficult." "It was. But I'm a survivor, Mr. Cross. I've been taking care of people my whole life. As a nurse, as a wife, as a daughter caring for aging parents. It's what I do." He leaned back in his wheelchair, studying me. "I'm going to be blunt, Mrs. Morrison. I've had 4 caregivers in the past 6 months. They all started out professional, competent, caring, and they all ended up seeing me as either a charity case or a meal ticket. Which one am I supposed to be?" That surprised him. I could see it in his eyes. "Excuse me? You're testing me, right? Seeing if I'll react to your money or your condition first. So which reaction gets me the job?" For the first time since I'd walked in, he smiled. It transformed his entire face. "Neither. I want someone who sees a person. Then you're in luck, because that's all I've ever seen when I look at someone." We talked for another 30 minutes. He explained that he'd been paralyzed from the waist down in a car accident 3 years ago, that he'd built his fortune creating cybersecurity software in his 20s, then expanded into various tech investments, that he worked from home now, running his companies remotely, and needed someone who could handle basic medical care, meal preparation, and wouldn't treat him like an invalid. The salary is $5,000 a month, plus room and board. he said finally. Your own suite, complete privacy when you're off duty. Are you interested? $5,000. I tried not to let my shock show. That's very generous. I pay well for loyalty and competence. When can you start? Immediately. As I drove back down that ridiculous driveway, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Helena? The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it immediately. Yes? It's Camilla. Where are you living now? My stomach dropped. How had she gotten my cell number? I'd forgotten I'd given it to her father's old insurance agent weeks ago. Why? I wanted to make sure you're okay. You left so suddenly, and I've been worried. Worried. Right. The same woman who'd given me 30 days to get out of my home was suddenly concerned about my welfare. I'm fine, Camilla. Is there something you need? Can't I just check on my stepmother? Something in her tone made my skin crawl. Sweet, concerned, completely fake. This was the same woman who'd called me a burden and counted down the days until I was gone. I have to go, I said. Helena, wait. I hung up and immediately regretted answering in the first place. How had she even gotten this number? And more importantly, why was she suddenly interested in my whereabouts? But I pushed the thought away. I had bigger things to worry about, like the fact that I'd just landed a job that seemed too good to be true, working for a man who was either the answer to my prayers or about to become my biggest mistake. As I pulled into the parking lot of the extended stay motel I'd been calling home, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't imagine. And honestly, after the month I'd had, I was ready for anything. That's when I realized I was wrong about everything. Moving into Alexander's mansion was like stepping into a different world. My suite was bigger than most apartments, with a bedroom, sitting area, and private bathroom that had more marble than a Roman palace. Sarah gave me the tour while Alexander worked in his office. Breakfast is at 8, lunch at noon, dinner at 7, she explained, her voice as crisp as her perfect outfit. Mr. Cross likes routine. He'll tell you his medical needs, but honestly, they're minimal. The accident affected his legs, not his independence. We passed a swimming pool that belonged in a resort and a gym that made my old community center look like a closet. How long have you worked for him? I asked. 3 years, since right after his accident. Something in her tone suggested there was a story there, but she didn't elaborate. That evening, I knocked on Alexander's office door. Come in, he called. He was at his desk, surrounded by multiple computer monitors displaying charts and graphs that might as well have been hieroglyphics to me. How are you settling in, Helena? Fine, thank you. I was wondering if we could go over your daily routine, medications, that sort of thing. He swiveled his chair to face me. No medications. I do physical therapy 3 times a week. A therapist comes here. Otherwise, I just need someone around in case of emergencies and to help with things that require reaching high shelves. I smiled at that. I'm 5'4". I'm not sure I'm your solution for high shelves. Fair point. He gestured to a chair. Sit for a minute. I sat, noting how he seemed more relaxed than during our interview. Can I ask you something? Shoot. Why specifically an older caregiver? Most people want young, energetic help. His face darkened. Because young women see a rich man in a wheelchair and think either how sad or how convenient. The sad ones want to fix me. The convenient ones want to marry me. And older women are past the age where they need a man to define them. Usually, I was mulling that over when Sarah appeared in the doorway. Mr. Cross? The files you requested about the previous caregivers. Previous caregivers. Something about the way she said it made my antenna go up. Thank you, Sarah. Just leave them on the desk. After Sarah left, I couldn't help myself. 4 caregivers in 6 months seems like a lot. Alexander's jaw tightened. It is. What happened to them? The first one decided I needed saving from my depression and kept pushing therapy I didn't want. The second one was more interested in my wine cellar than my welfare. The third one thought she could seduce her way into my will. And the fourth? The fourth, Maria, left suddenly, said she couldn't continue, but I suspected there was more to it. I later discovered she'd been asking too many questions about my finances and daily routine. That seemed odd. Did something happen? I thought she was different. Professional, competent, kind. We developed what I thought was a friendship. Then one morning, I woke up and she was gone. Left a note saying she couldn't continue. There was something he wasn't telling me. I could feel it. But before I could ask more questions, my phone rang. Unknown number again. "Excuse me," I said to Alexander, stepping into the hallway. "Hello? Helena? Thank goodness. I've been trying to reach you. Camilla. Again. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. Where are you staying? I drove by a few motels, but you're looking for me?" My blood went cold. "Why?" "Because I made a mistake, okay? I was grieving, and I said things I didn't mean. I want to make it right." Right. The woman who'd literally counted down the days until I was homeless suddenly wanted to make things right. "Camilla, I'm fine. I have a job. I have a place to live. You don't need to worry about me." "A job? Where? Doing what?" The urgency in her voice set off every alarm bell I had. "Why does it matter?" "Because you're family, Helena. Despite everything, you're the only family I have left." Family. From the woman who'd told me I was never really family in the first place. "I have to go," I said. "Helena, wait. Can we meet for coffee? I have something important to tell you about Dad's estate. Something I should have mentioned earlier." My blood stopped flowing. "What about the estate?" "Not over the phone. Can you meet me tomorrow? That little cafe on Sunset where you and Dad used to go?" Against my better judgment, I agreed. After I hung up, I stood in the hallway trying to process what had just happened. First, Camilla was looking for me at motels. Then she suddenly wanted to make amends. And now there was something about my husband's estate she hadn't told me? When I went back into Alexander's office, he took one look at my face and frowned. "Everything okay?" "I'm not sure." I sat down heavily. "Mr. Cross, can I ask you a personal question?" "Alexander. And yes, when you do background checks on your employees, how thorough are they?" His expression grew serious. "Very thorough. Why?" "Because I think I'm about to discover that someone I trusted has been lying to me about more than just my living situation." Little did I know that was just the tip of the iceberg. The next morning, I stood in front of my closet, well, Alexander's guest suite closet, trying to decide what to wear to meet someone who'd thrown me out of my home, but now claimed to have important information about my dead husband's estate. Business casual seemed appropriate for potential betrayal. I found Alexander in his home gym, working out on a modified weight machine that looked like it cost more than my car. He was wearing a tank top, and I was surprised by how muscular his arms and shoulders were. Apparently, losing the use of your legs didn't mean you gave up on fitness. "Good morning," I said, trying not to stare. "Morning. You look like you didn't sleep well." "I didn't. I keep thinking about this meeting with my stepdaughter. She mentioned something about my husband's estate that she should have told me earlier." Alexander stopped mid-rep and looked at me seriously. "Helena, did you have a lawyer review your husband's will and estate documents?" I felt my cheeks get hot. "No. I trusted Camilla to handle everything. She said it was all straightforward. Never trust family with legal matters unless they're your lawyer," he said bluntly. "Want me to have my attorney take a look?" "I couldn't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering. And after 30 years in business, I've learned that when someone suddenly wants to make things right, it's usually because they've been caught making things wrong." An hour later, I sat across from Camilla at the little cafe where my husband and I used to share Sunday brunch. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her coffee cup and checking her phone constantly. "You look good," she said when I sat down. "I was worried you'd be struggling." "I'm fine. Where are you staying?" "I tried to find you to apologize sooner, but—" "Camilla, you said you had something to tell me about your father's estate." She took a deep breath. "Right. The thing is, there was a life insurance policy. I found the paperwork when I was going through Dad's files." My stomach dropped. "What kind of life insurance policy?" "A big one. $300,000. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "With you as the beneficiary. But here's the thing. The insurance company sent the paperwork to the house, and I may have delayed forwarding it to you." I stared at her. "I was the beneficiary of a $300,000 life insurance policy, and you're just telling me now?" "I was going to tell you, but then you got so upset about the house, and I thought maybe it would be better to wait until you were more settled." "You thought it would be better?" I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "Camilla, I've been living in an extended stay motel. I've been applying for jobs at grocery stores, and you've been sitting on $300,000 that belongs to me?" "Helena, please sit down. People are staring." I sat, but only because I was afraid my legs wouldn't hold me up. "Where is this money now?" "It's in probate. These things take time. How much time? The lawyer said 6 months, maybe longer. But Helena, I've been thinking, maybe we could work something out in the meantime. And there it was, the real reason for this meeting. What kind of arrangement? Well, you're working now, right? You said you have a job. So maybe you don't need the full amount right away. Maybe we could split it. Since Dad did leave me the house and all the expenses that come with it. I stared at this woman who'd called me family 1 minute and tried to rob me the next. You want to split my inheritance from your father. Our father, she corrected quickly. I mean, he was your husband, but he was my dad for 35 years. And honestly, Helena, 300,000 is a lot of money for someone your age. What are you going to do with it all? What was I going to do with it? Maybe not worry about dying homeless and broke. Maybe have some security for the first time since my husband passed away. Maybe not feel like a charity case. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called the number Alexander had given me. Robertson and Associates, a crisp voice answered. This is Helena Morrison. Mr. Cross asked me to call about reviewing some estate documents. Of course. Mrs. Morrison, can you come in this afternoon at 3? I'll be there. I hung up and looked at Camilla, who'd gone pale. Helena, what are you doing? Getting a lawyer. Apparently I should have done that months ago. You don't need a lawyer. This is family business. No, Camilla, this is business. And from now on, that's exactly how I'm going to treat it. I left her sitting there and drove back to Malibu, shaking with anger and something else I couldn't quite identify. When I walked into Alexander's office, he took one look at my face and shut his laptop. That bad? Worse. There's a $300,000 life insurance policy that she's been hiding from me. She wants to split it because, and I quote, 300,000 is a lot of money for someone my age. Alexander's expression went dark. She's been stealing from you. Apparently. Your lawyer can see me at 3. Good. Helena, I need to tell you something else. Something in his tone made me sit down. What? I had my security team do some preliminary research on your stepdaughter after you mentioned her yesterday. My heart started pounding. What kind of research? Basic public records stuff, court filings, credit reports that are public domain. What I found was concerning enough that I've ordered a deeper investigation. The room started spinning. She's broke. Worse than broke. She's desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. I thought about the way she'd been asking where I was staying, how she'd tried to find me at motels. Alexander, what if she wasn't just trying to apologize? What if she was trying to figure out my situation because she wants to know if you found another source of income? He finished. Someone she could potentially target. That's when I realized I was wrong about everything I thought I knew about my stepdaughter. But what I discovered next would make her previous betrayal look like a kindness. I was still processing the news about Camilla's debts when I heard a car door slam in the driveway. Alexander and I both looked toward the window. Are you expecting someone? He asked. No, but my stomach was already dropping because I recognized that engine sound. My husband had always said Camilla's BMW needed a tune-up. Sarah appeared in the doorway looking flustered. Mr. Cross, there's a woman here claiming to be Mrs. Morrison's daughter. She says it's urgent. Stepdaughter, I corrected automatically. And it's never urgent with Camilla unless it involves money. Alexander studied my face. Do you want me to have security escort her off the property? For a moment, I was tempted, but then my curiosity got the better of me. No, let's see what she wants. 5 minutes later, Camilla walked into Alexander's office, and I watched her face change the moment she saw the surroundings. Her eyes went wide, taking in the expensive furniture, the wall of awards, the view of the ocean. Then she saw Alexander, and I swear I could practically see the dollar signs appearing in her pupils. Helena, I'm so sorry to bother you at work, but I was so worried when you left the cafe. I followed you part way and saw you turn toward Malibu. Then I found this address through your employer lookup. She stopped mid-sentence, staring at Alexander. I'm Camilla Stevens, Helena's stepdaughter. Alexander nodded politely. Alexander Cross. I watched Camilla process the name. Her fake, concerned expression shifted to something calculating. Cross? As in, Cross Technologies? Among other things. Oh, she knew exactly who he was now. I could see it in the way she suddenly stood straighter, smoothed her hair, and turned on that smile she used to use on her father when she wanted something expensive. Helena, You didn't tell me you were working for someone so prominent. She shot Alexander a look that was supposed to be charming and came across as predatory. You didn't ask where I was working, I replied. You were too busy trying to split my inheritance. Camilla's cheeks flushed. Helena, please, we're family. Can't we discuss private matters privately? Actually, Alexander said smoothly, I should give you ladies some space. Helena, I'll be in the pool if you need anything. As soon as he was gone, Camilla practically bounced on her toes. Helena, oh my God, do you know who that is? My employer. He's worth almost $3 billion. I looked him up on the drive over. He's one of the richest men in California under 50. And you're working as his caregiver. This is perfect. Something cold settled in my chest. Perfect for what? Camilla sat down in Alexander's chair like she owned the place. Helena, think about this opportunity. You're living in his house, taking care of him, earning his trust. A man like that, isolated, dependent on others, he probably gets lonely. Camilla, stop right there. No, listen to me. You're an attractive woman for your age. You're kind, caring, available. And he's a wealthy man who's probably vulnerable after his accident. This could solve both our problems. I stared at her. Both our problems? Well, you need financial security, and I need to get out of this debt situation. If you could just, I don't know, get closer to him. Make yourself indispensable. Men like that often marry their caregivers. The room went silent except for the sound of blood rushing in my ears. You want me to seduce Alexander Cross for his money. I want you to secure your future, and maybe remember who your family is when you do. I stood up slowly. Get out. Helena, get out of this house right now, or I'm calling security. You're being ridiculous. I'm trying to help you. No, you're trying to use me. Just like you used your father's love for you to manipulate him. Just like you used my grief to steal from me. And now, you want me to become some kind of con artist. Camilla's mask finally slipped completely. Fine. Be stupid. Stay poor. But don't come crying to me when you realize you wasted the opportunity of a lifetime. I won't. Because I finally understand what kind of person you really are. After she left, I sat in Alexander's office shaking. Not just from anger, but from the realization of how close I'd come to losing more than just my home and money. I'd almost lost my integrity. When Alexander came back 20 minutes later, his hair still damp from the pool, he took one look at my face and closed the door behind him. What did she want? I couldn't look at him directly. She wanted me to seduce you for your money so we could both benefit from your wealth. I expected shock, or anger, or disgust. Instead, Alexander just nodded grimly. That's what I was afraid of. You knew? I suspected. Helena, I need to tell you something about Maria, my last caregiver. Remember I said she left suddenly? That wasn't the whole truth. I discovered she was asking suspicious questions about my finances and routine. When I confronted her, she quit immediately. Why? Because I discovered she was feeding information about my daily routine, my finances, my personal life to someone who was planning to blackmail me. Someone who was very interested in my relationship status and how isolated I was. My blood ran cold. Who? We never found out. But whoever it was had done their research on vulnerable wealthy men. Maria was just the inside source. I thought about Camilla's questions about where I was staying. Her sudden interest in my welfare. Her calculated reaction to seeing Alexander's wealth. Alexander, I think my stepdaughter might be more dangerous than either of us realized. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I looked at Alexander and he nodded. I answered. Helena, it's me again. I think we need to have another conversation. But what I discovered next made me realize Camilla's visit was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to find 17 missed calls from Camilla. 17. Before 8 a.m. That's either desperation or insanity. And with my stepdaughter, it could honestly be both. Alexander was already in his office when I brought him coffee. Rough night? He asked, noting my expression. Camilla called 17 times. I'm starting to think she's lost her mind. Or she's realized she's losing control of the situation. He gestured to his computer screen. My investigators sent an update. Want to hear something interesting? I sat down, bracing myself. Hit me. Your stepdaughter has been researching wealthy disabled men online. Public records show she's been searching property records, court filings, and social media for information about men in situations similar to mine. My stomach turned. She's been hunting. More than that, she's been planning. Helena, I think you stumbled into something bigger than family greed. My team found public records suggesting she's had financial problems for years and has been involved in legal disputes with other elderly individuals. Before I could respond, Sarah knocked on the door. Mr. Cross? Miss Stevens is here again. She says Helena left something important at the cafe yesterday. Alexander and I exchanged looks. I didn't leave anything, I said. Should I have security escort her off the property? No, Alexander said slowly. Let's see what she's really after. But Helena, I want you to be careful. Don't be alone with her. Camilla was waiting in the living room, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's mortgage payments. When she saw me, her smile was all teeth and no warmth. Helena, there you are. You forgot this yesterday. She held up a small wrapped package. I didn't forget anything because I didn't bring anything. Oh, but you did. It's a gift, from me to you, an apology for everything that's happened. Against my better judgment, I took the package. Inside was a silver bracelet that looked expensive and completely unlike anything Camilla had ever given me. It's beautiful, I said carefully, but I can't accept this. Of course you can. We're family. She glanced around the room, her eyes calculating. This is quite a place. You must be very comfortable here. I have a job, Camilla. That's all. Oh, I'm sure it's just a job. Her tone suggested she thought otherwise. But Helena, can we talk privately? About Dad's estate. There are some complications I need to discuss with you. Every alarm bell in my head was going off. What kind of complications? Legal ones. The insurance company is asking questions about our relationship, about whether you influenced Dad's decisions near the end. They think there might have been elder abuse. The words hit me like a physical blow. What are you talking about? I'm trying to protect you, but they want to investigate. Unless we can show them that you're financially stable now, that you don't need Dad's insurance money. She let the implication hang in the air. That's when I realized what she was really doing. She wasn't just trying to steal my inheritance. She was trying to blackmail me into compromising Alexander. What would you do if someone threatened to destroy your reputation to get what they wanted? Because that's exactly what my stepdaughter was doing. I told Alexander about Camilla's threat the moment she left. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each word. Elder abuse accusations, he said finally. She's trying to scare you into giving up your inheritance voluntarily. Can she do that? Can she really make the insurance company investigate me? She can try to plant seeds of doubt. But Helena, you didn't abuse anyone. You loved your husband, and anyone who knew you both could testify to that. But fighting it would cost money I don't have. You're not alone in this. Alexander moved his wheelchair closer to where I was sitting. Helena, I need to tell you something. These past few weeks, having you here, it's changed everything for me. My heart started beating faster. Alexander, I know the timing is terrible with everything happening with Camilla, but I can't pretend anymore that this is just an employer-employee relationship. I looked into his brown eyes and saw something I hadn't expected to see again in my lifetime. Someone seeing me not as a burden, or a target, or a means to an end, but as a woman worth caring about. I feel the same way, I admitted. But Alexander, if Camilla finds out about us, she'll use it against both of us. Let her try. I've been dealing with people who want to use me for my money my entire adult life. She's not the first, and she won't be the last. That afternoon, while Alexander was in a video conference, I decided to call the insurance company directly. If Camilla was spreading lies about me, I wanted to know. Meridian Life Insurance, Claims Department. This is Helena Morrison. I'm calling about a policy on my late husband, Robert Morrison. Oh yes, Mrs. Morrison. We've been trying to reach you. We received some concerning correspondence about your claim. My blood went cold. What kind of correspondence? From a family member questioning whether you should be the beneficiary. They're alleging that you may have coerced your husband into naming you. That's completely false. Who sent this correspondence? A Camilla Stevens. She claims to be your husband's daughter and says she has evidence of manipulation. I took a deep breath. Ma'am, I need you to know that Ms. Stevens has significant financial problems and is trying to steal my inheritance. My husband named me as beneficiary of his own free will. Mrs. Morrison, I understand this is difficult, but we do have to investigate any allegations of fraud. However, I can tell you that we've seen this type of family dispute before. If you can provide character references and documentation of your marriage, we should be able to resolve this quickly. After I hung up, I felt both relieved and furious. Relieved that the insurance company seemed reasonable. Furious that Camilla had actually followed through on her threat. When Alexander finished his call, I told him about the conversation. "She's escalating," he said grimly. "Helena, my investigators have found some preliminary information about Camilla that's concerning. It's not complete yet, but you need to see what we have so far." He handed me a folder with several documents. As I read, my hands started shaking. The public records showed Camilla had been involved in legal disputes with elderly individuals in 2 other states. Property disputes, contested wills, allegations of manipulation. The pattern was disturbing. "Alexander, she's done this before, multiple times. And Helena, there's something strange about the timing of your husband's first wife's death, too." I looked up at him, confused. "What do you mean? When did your husband's first wife die?" The room started spinning. "About 5 years before I met him. Cancer. But what does that have to do with— Look at page 4. I flipped to the page and saw financial records. These show Camilla received a large sum of money from her father right after his first wife died. The timing is suspicious. That's when I realized Camilla might be far more dangerous than either of us had imagined. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Robert's first wife, about how she'd died so suddenly, about how Camilla had been there caring for her stepmother during those final weeks. Alexander found me in the kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at a cup of cold coffee. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "I keep wondering if I married a widower or if I married a man whose daughter made him a widower." Alexander reached across the table and took my hand. "Helena, we don't know anything for certain yet. But the timing, Alexander. Camilla was struggling financially 5 years ago, too. I remember Robert mentioning that he'd helped her out of some legal troubles right around the time his first wife died. The investigators are looking into it. But Helena, you need to know something else. They found evidence that Camilla's been watching you for months, even before your husband died." I stared at him. "What kind of evidence?" "Credit card records show she hired a private investigator to follow you and your husband last year. She was documenting your routines, your relationship, probably looking for ways to challenge your marriage legally." The full scope of Camilla's planning was starting to sink in. This wasn't grief or greed. This was a calculated, long-term strategy to eliminate anyone who stood between her and her father's money. "Alexander, what if she's planning to do something to me too?" "That's not going to happen." "And Helena, I've been thinking. We should take this information to the authorities. Let them decide if there's enough for a real investigation." "You don't understand. She's not going to try something dramatic. She's going to destroy my reputation, make me look like a gold digger who manipulated you, just like she claims I manipulated her father." That's when my phone rang. "Again." "Let me guess," Alexander said dryly. "Camilla?" I looked at the caller ID. Unknown number. "Actually, no. This is someone else." "Helena Morrison?" The voice was official, professional. "Yes? This is Detective Rodriguez with the Santa Monica Police Department. I understand you may have information about Camilla Stevens. We'd like to speak with you about some complaints we've received." My heart stopped. "Is she all right?" "She's fine, ma'am. But we've received several complaints about her behavior, and we understand you might have relevant information." I looked at Alexander, who was already reaching for his own phone. "What kind of complaints?" "Financial manipulation, harassment, fraudulent insurance claims. We're trying to determine if there's enough evidence to open a formal investigation." After I hung up, Alexander was already talking to someone. "Yes, I need Robert Chen in my office first thing tomorrow morning." "No, I don't care if he's with another client. This is an emergency." "Who's Robert Chen?" "The best criminal defense attorney in California." "Helena, you're not going to talk to the police without representation." "Alexander, I haven't done anything wrong. Neither did the last 3 elderly people Camilla targeted. But they all ended up looking guilty until she was caught." The next morning, Sitting in the police station with Mr. Chen beside me, I learned just how many people had come forward with similar stories about Camilla. "Mrs. Morrison," Detective Rodriguez said, "your stepdaughter appears to have a pattern of targeting vulnerable family members and acquaintances. We've received complaints from people in 3 different states. But are these actual crimes or just family disputes? That's what we're trying to determine. Some of the allegations are serious enough that we're considering opening a formal investigation." Mr. Chen leaned forward. "Detective, what exactly are you investigating? Potential fraud, elder manipulation, and harassment. Nothing proven yet, but the pattern is concerning enough that we want to document everything properly. 3 deaths, 3 families destroyed, and I'd almost been number 4. What I discovered next would make me realize just how lucky I was to be alive." The next few days passed in a blur of police interviews, legal meetings, and the surreal experience of watching my stepdaughter being arrested on the evening news. "Local woman arrested on fraud charges," the anchor announced as Camilla's mugshot filled the screen. "Camilla Stevens is accused of harassment and filing fraudulent insurance claims." Alexander muted the TV. "How are you holding up?" "I feel like I've been living in someone else's life. A month ago, I was a homeless widow. Now I'm apparently a witness in a criminal investigation." "The insurance company called," Alexander said gently. "They're releasing your husband's life insurance immediately. The police investigation convinced them that Camilla's allegations were malicious. $300,000. Financial security for the first time in months. But somehow, it felt less important than it had a week ago." "Alexander, I need to ask you something. Anything. When this is all over, when Camilla's in prison and the media attention dies down, what happens to us?" He looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you hired me as a caregiver. Now you're protecting me from a criminal investigation and paying for lawyers I could never afford. At some point, people are going to say I manipulated you, just like Camilla claimed I manipulated her father." Alexander moved his wheelchair until he was directly in front of me. "Helena, do you think you manipulated me?" "No. Do you think I'm so weak-minded that I can't tell the difference between genuine feelings and manipulation?" "No, but..." "Then stop worrying about what people will say. I've spent 3 years in this house, barely trusting anyone, convinced that my accident made me vulnerable to people who wanted to use me. You didn't see a disabled billionaire. You saw a man who needed someone to care about him as a person." "Alexander, marry me." The words hung in the air between us. "What?" "Marry me. Not because you need financial security, and not because I need a caregiver. Marry me because I love you, and because I think you love me too." Before I could answer, Sarah burst into the room. "Mr. Cross, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been a development." "What kind of development?" "Camilla Stevens made bail, and she's here." We could hear her before we saw her, screaming at the security guards outside. "I have a right to see my stepmother. Helena, you have to help me." Alexander grabbed his phone. "Security, do not let her on the property under any circumstances." But Camilla's voice carried through the windows. "Helena, I know you're in there. You can't just abandon family. I'm sorry about everything, but I need you now." "She sounds desperate," I said. "She is desperate. Helena, the prosecutor told my lawyer that they're building a case against her. It's going to take time, but they think they have enough evidence for fraud charges. How long will this take? Months? Maybe longer. But Helena, that doesn't matter right now. What matters is that you're safe, and you're not going back to that life." We watched from the window as police arrived to arrest Camilla for violating her restraining order. As they put her in the patrol car, she looked up at the house and screamed, "This isn't over, Helena. You'll regret this. All of this should have been mine." As the police car drove away, Alexander took my hand. "So," he said quietly, "about that proposal. What I said next would change both our lives forever." 6 months later, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror in our bedroom, because I'd said yes to Alexander's proposal, putting on earrings for our small wedding ceremony. The doorbell rang, followed by Sarah's voice. "Mrs. Morrison, the guests are arriving." Mrs. Morrison. In 2 hours, I'd be Mrs. Cross. At 65 years old, I was getting a second chance at love with a man who saw me as more than just a caregiver or a burden. Camilla's criminal case was still working its way through the courts. She'd been denied bail after violating multiple restraining orders, and was awaiting trial. Her lawyer had contacted us several times trying to negotiate some kind of plea deal, but we'd refused all contact. My phone buzzed. Text message from unknown number. "Helena, it's me. They gave me phone privileges. We need to talk." I deleted the message without reading it twice. The ceremony was perfect. Small, intimate, held in Alexander's garden overlooking the ocean. My sister Marie flew in from Phoenix, along with a few of Alexander's closest friends and business associates. No drama, no reporters, no family members trying to steal anything. During the reception, Alexander's phone started ringing. He glanced at it and frowned. "Unknown number." "Don't answer it," I said. But it kept ringing. Different numbers, but constant calls. Finally, Alexander turned off his phone. "Probably reporters." We were cutting the cake when Sarah approached us, looking uncomfortable. "Mrs. Cross? I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've been getting calls all day. Same person, using the jail's phone system. The caller ID shows the county jail." My stomach dropped. "Camilla, should I call the police?" "No," I said. "She's allowed to make phone calls from jail. But we don't have to answer them." But the calls didn't stop. They continued through the night, through our honeymoon weekend, through the following week. The county jail allows inmates limited phone privileges, and Camilla was using every minute of hers to call us. By the time we returned from our honeymoon in Napa Valley, our answering service had logged 99 calls from the county jail, all from Camilla. 99, Alexander said, scrolling through the call log. She called us 99 times. The final voicemail was 20 minutes long. Camilla sobbing, begging, threatening, pleading for money for her legal defense, for commissary funds, for anything. "Helena, please. You're the only family I have left. I know I made mistakes, but I'm your stepdaughter. You can't just abandon me. The public defender barely talks to me. Please, I'll do anything. I'll make it right. Just please help me. Please don't let me rot in here while I wait for trial." "Helena? Helena, are you there? Please pick up. Please." I listened to the whole thing, then deleted it. "Any regrets?" Alexander asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I looked out at the ocean, at the life I'd built from nothing, at the man who'd seen past my age and circumstances to love the person I really was. "Just one," I said. "What's that?" "I regret not blocking the jail's number 98 calls sooner." Alexander laughed, and I realized that for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was exactly where I belonged. Camilla had spent years planning to destroy my life and steal everything I had. Instead, she'd led me to a life better than anything I could have imagined. Her trial was still months away, but I didn't need a court verdict to know that justice had already been served. Sometimes karma has a sense of humor, and sometimes the best revenge really is living well. Thank you so much for following Helena's journey. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did you see Camilla's true nature coming from the beginning? Or were you surprised by how deep her schemes went? And what did you think about Helena finding love at 65? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.